Welcome back to the second Take It Apart Tuesday. Last week we looked at throwing and how to break it down into its constituent parts or elements, work out what's important, how to improve them, and then put them back together to make any throw better. That's what we're going to try and do with running this week, because I am certain that the majority of you out there just think, I'll just go out and run. And that's absolutely fine, but trust me when I say this, you'll probably get away with it now while you're at school. When you get to adulthood, when you get to being older and your muscles get creakier and everything starts to fall apart like me, I believe I'm made of crumbly biscuits, then you would wish that you had changed or tried to improve your running technique and looked at all the little bits, taken them apart and put them back together. And what that will do is, that will both help you avoid injury in the long term, but it will also make you more efficient and therefore faster as a runner. And surely we all want to be like that, right? Now, before we start, let me just say what I'm actually showing you here is based on almost all running, certainly the majority of training, except for proper sprint events. So proper sprint events, most of it is the same here, but you will tend to do a lot more running on the balls of your feet when you're sprinting, like really hard sprinting. Whereas general running and running for distance and up to kind of anything really 800 meters and above is more, this is what we're going to show, this is how we're going to break it apart. So for your training or running, I thought it would be beneficial for us to understand what running is and why we do it first. Then I'm going to take you through some of the main mistakes I see with you and with adults that run. Then I'm going to show you some drills, some really easy things you can do at home in order to improve them. And then I'm going to show you what the proper running technique looks like, or try to, because I'm using my running technique, so it's not perfect by any means. Then I'd like you to go away and practice looking at your own technique or someone else's technique and working out what's good and what needs to be improved. That's the important thing here, but we'll get into that in a minute. Let's start with the theory of running. Running is a linear sport, and what I mean by that is that it is our aim to move forwards as fast as we're able to over a set distance. So it makes sense to consider anything that stops us from moving forwards as a negative contribution. What does that actually mean? Well, movement occurs in three planes: sagittal, frontal and transverse. Sagittal being back and forwards, frontal being side to side, and transverse being rotational. Due to the nature of our body when running, there will always be some rotational movement, but our aim should be to have minimal side to side or rotation, so that all of our energy is focused on moving us forwards instead. So while we're running, here are some things to consider. Imagine you have a constant line down the middle of your torso, where your zip would be. Do any of your limbs cross that line? If so, the likelihood is that they're causing side to side movement rather than forward momentum. Now consider the sagittal plane. It helps to look at it like a clock for me. Again, our aim should be to cause as little stress or misalignment of our body as possible to avoid injury and maximise forward momentum. By landing our foot at 6 o'clock, we're absorbing shock, keeping balanced by landing under our centre of mass and maintaining forward momentum. If we landed at 5 o'clock, for example, the shock absorption would be inefficient. Times that by thousands and thousands of steps per run, and you can quickly lead to an overuse injury. So what are we going to do about it? Let's look at the 5 main technique errors you can see and fix. The first flaw I see was limbs crossing the midline. It takes us from a forwards momentum to a sideways or rotational momentum, from arms crossing the midline to feet landing across the midline. Some drills to help with this are balancing drills like skips, or even just running with a consciously wider stride when you're out. Some athletes put tape down the middle of their treadmill to check that they're not crossing the midline. A good drill for your arms is really accentuating the hip to lip movement. It will feel ridiculous at the start, same as widening the stride when you're out running, but it will really help. After that, I see a lot of overstriding. This is landing ahead of your centre of mass and causing the ability of your body to absorb shock through the ankle, knee and hip to be compromised. Every time you land on the floor, force downwards, an equal and opposite force is projected upwards through your leg, so it makes sense to want to be able to absorb as much of that as possible by delaying landing and landing directly under your centre of mass. Leg cycling can really help with this, as it conditions your legs to complete a full cycle of the running movement, but you delay landing, and by scraping backwards when your foot is in contact with the floor, then you're replicating the force you'll need to propel yourself forwards when you're actually running. Closely linked to this, and the third technical error I see, is heel striking. Landing on your heels, the equivalent of putting the brakes on, and much the same as overstriding, it leads to the impact forces not being absorbed as much as they could be. A neutral landing is a safe bet and can be helped through drills such as ankling and fast feet, because increased cadence can help avoid heel striking. The fourth technique flaw is running with tension, and I see this a lot with runners. They run with tense fists or even holding a phone or bottle, and tension in the arms can lead to tension elsewhere and really tighten up your running style, particularly if the tension is only on one side, like if you're holding a phone or a drink. It causes huge imbalances that the body then has to compensate for instead of focusing on moving you forwards. Paula Radcliffe said she always used to run imagining she was holding a Pringle between her thumb and forefinger in each hand, and the aim was to not break them. It keeps you relaxed and focused, and avoids unnecessary tension in the arms, shoulders and neck, which can ultimately change your whole running technique through the kinetic chain. Finally, the fifth flaw I see is too many people running with straight-ish legs. I say straight-ish, not completely straight, that would look ridiculous. A solid leg cycle should involve a knee drive and a heel lift to keep the leg in the air as much as possible. If we think about strain on muscles, consider the strain on the quads and hips running with a straightish leg. Those hips have to bring a full leg forwards every step. That's a lot to ask. By implementing drills such as high knees or heel lifts, we're teaching the hamstring to take up some of the work, and then the hip quads only need to work half as hard by bringing half a leg through. Technically, not literally half a leg. So there you go. You've got the theory of running, what good running looks like, what bad running looks like, and what drills you can do to fix it, and what you're looking for in order to help fix it in the first place. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to go out into your garden or wherever you are nearby where you live, and either get a phone and video yourself from the front, from the back and from the side running, and see if you can see any of the technique flaws that we've just talked about here. See if you can see if your legs are crossing over an imaginary centre line, or are your arms swinging across, or if you're looking from a side-on view, are you landing in front of your centre of gravity? That way you know when you come back to the video what drills you're going to need to do in order to fix those specific problems. And also, it's really handy to be able to help someone else, to be able to coach or teach someone else. So you could go and look at your mum or sister or brother or dad or dog and then see what they might need to improve on, because you now know what you're looking for, and help them. So that's a double whammy, isn't it? That's an extra bonus. That is how you break down running. Those are some of the things that you're looking for in order to keep yourself injury-free and running faster and more efficiently. Now all you've got to do is go do it, right? Okay, good. I'll see you for Workout Wednesday. Well done.